Nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. And with that, we will invite any witnesses you've brought with you on your behalf.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Clerk Magistrate Brian D'Andrea from the Worcester District Court. I have Attorney Peter Ettenberg with me also.
Welcome, Attorney Ettenberg.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I first met Jackie when she was working as a receptionist at one of my friend's law firms, and that friend is Judge Andy Mandel. And it was sometime later that Jackie was doing freelance legal work out of her home. And I sent her one project, and she sent it back to me, and she sent me an invoice for $15 an hour. I read what she had done, I didn't change one thing, and I immediately gave her a raise to $30 an hour. I continued to send her projects, and she continued to send me back incredible and creative results. One day, she called me up and she asked me to pass her name along for anybody that might be looking to hire somebody for their law firm. As soon as I got off the phone, I went to my law partner and I told him, I didn't ask him, that we needed to get her in right away. It was one of the best decisions we've made ever since our law firm was started. And she's been with us ever since. That was in 2004. And we have never regretted the fact that she has made us all better lawyers. But then there was one day that she came to me and she said she's thinking of leaving the office. She was being offered another position at another firm. Again, I went to my law partner and I told him, and I didn't ask him this time either, that I didn't care what it cost, we weren't losing her. And we didn't. I said she's made us all better lawyers. We've worked together on some very hard and difficult cases. We've made new law. We've tried hard to change the law. Her legal work has been consistently extraordinary. Often she's going to do a motion to suppress or a motion to dismiss. She'll look at me and she'll say, "That's a winner." She's always been right. When she gives me a memo of law, I just sign my name. She has all the qualities that I would look for in a judge, especially a judge in the district court. She's an extremely hard worker. She's not intimidated by the work in the district courts. She has tremendous experience with the pace of that court and the multiple issues that she's going to face. There's no 9-to-5 mentality with her. Whatever needs to get done, gets done to resolve the case or try the case. She's never shied away from difficult cases, and this is something she's going to carry with her to the bench. She checks all the boxes: civil, criminal, experience, intelligence, fairness, compassion, patience. She's not going to be afraid to make hard decisions. In our practice, in our firm, we've dealt with all different kinds of people. The same people that are going to come before her in the district court. She understands their frailties and their mistakes. She understands the evil that people can do on others, and she will impose an appropriate response to that evil if necessary. She's very aware of the intensity that goes with a trial and all that leads up to it. She understands that there are people behind the pleadings and will always be ready to deal with the many different aspects that go into being a district court judge. One thing that's a constant with Jackie is that she will bring her common sense to the court. I'm certain that her judicial application doesn't do justice. It doesn't give you a true picture of her abilities. I can't tell you the number of judges that have come up to me to tell me what a good trial lawyer she is and how good a job she's done, especially on cases with very difficult facts. Other lawyers have come to me, including district attorneys on the other side, and tell me she's a really good lawyer. She's going to be a really good judge. I've been trying cases for 49 years. I can't believe I say that. I can tell you that in all my time in the courts, Jackie has all the qualities that one would want in a trial judge, particularly in the district court. Somebody who has been there and done that. In addition to her skills as a lawyer, she brings with her a true understanding of the underdog. She knows that standing in front of the judge's bench is a person who has a story to tell, a person who may not have had the opportunities that she did, but who deserves to be heard. In our law firm, she has represented a wide cross-section of people from all across the state. She doesn't have a cookie-cutter mentality. She has patience and understanding. Just what a judge needs. She clearly has the temperament to deal with the myriad of matters that come before the district courts and the varying interests at play. I have never seen her treat any of the parties with whom she interacts in any disrespectful manner. I have always been afraid of this day, that she would leave us. It's very, very bittersweet for me. I'm sad, but at the same time, I can't be that selfish. This is an unbelievable opportunity, not only for her, but for the district court to have her. She has more than earned her nomination, and I urge you to vote favorably for her. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll take any questions.
I'll take questions, and first I just want to introduce the counselors. I have Counselor Mary Hurley with us, Counselor Marilyn Petito-Devani, and Counselor Robin Juville.
I wish there was only one other counselor who may hear that. That was so heartfelt. I thought you were going to cry.
I may.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. How many years has it been?
She's been with us for over 20 years.
Wow. I know this is a difficult question to really think about it, but is there one case that you saw that she represented that really impressed you and that would bring you here today, just only on that one?
I think it was a case where we actually changed the law. It was Commonwealth versus Melissa Pugh. Jackie sat with me throughout the trial. This was a case where a young lady gave birth to her child in the toilet, and the baby died, and she took the baby and put it in a dumpster. And she was charged with manslaughter. And this was the facts were horrible, but the backstory was just as bad. And Jackie sat with me throughout the trial. She did all of the legal research on that case. And after the judge, or Judge Peter Agnes, who was on the appeals court, and he was in the Superior Court at the time, and he made some comments from the bench in rendering his decision. He found my client guilty, but didn't sentence her. He stayed the sentence so that we could appeal. And Jackie took that case, took the facts, took the law, brought it to the SJC, argued the case before the SJC, and overturned the conviction and changed the law. And I think that to me was just unbelievable work on her part. And I've never forgotten it, and I never will forget.
What was the result of that? What was the sentence?
She didn't get sentenced. They overturned the conviction. And she got 1 to 2. It was something like that. She didn't get much of a sentence, but they stayed the sentence.
Was there some kind of mental issue?
No, it was whether or not a woman has a right, basically, to give birth wherever she wants to give birth.
Did you kill it?
She didn't kill it. It was a question whether the child was born alive and whether...
I shouldn't even get into that because, first of all, it's upsetting to me, and it's done, and everyone has to be represented, and there's no one knows that more than I do, sitting here 22 years. Everyone deserves representation, so thank you both for that. But thank you for coming. Your testimony was really heartfelt. There's no other words to say. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Juville.
The rumors I hear in Worcester is your high reputation and esteem is caused by this young lady.
Without a doubt. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. When I tell you If we have a legal issue, she gives me the law. I just mouth what she's written, and it makes me look good. It makes me look great. Seriously, I am amazed at the quality of her work. Absolutely every day.
Well, working with you, I have no doubt she'll be a great judge.
No doubt to my mind either.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Questions from other counselors?
No, thank you.
Counselor Early? Attorney Ember, we appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
It means a lot to us, and thank you for coming in this morning. Mr. Clerk Magistrate.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the council. I've spoken with several of you in advance of today's hearing in support of Attorney Jaclyn Greenhalgh, so I'll keep my remarks brief. As a relatively young and inexperienced prosecutor, I once had the opportunity to try a district court case to a jury of 6 persons, including Attorney Greenhalgh. After deliberating for a very short period of time, the jury returned with a verdict of not guilty. I don't remember much about the facts of that particular case, but what I do remember is that Attorney Greenhalgh, who is a widely respected trial attorney, took the time to approach me after the verdict and offer some insights and guidance in terms of things that she thought could help make me a better trial advocate in the future. That small example, I would respectfully suggest, is illustrative of the collegial attitude that she'll bring to the district court bench. As someone who dealt with Attorney Greenhalgh in my capacity as a former prosecutor, I would best describe her as incredibly smart, to echo Attorney Enberg's comments, hardworking, prepared, compassionate, empathetic, and reasonable. Attributes I think we all can agree are important to someone looking to sit on the district court. As someone who currently works in the clerk magistrate's office, I have a very simple litmus test for attorneys, and it's how do they treat the staff? Attorney Greenhalgh has an attribute that's difficult to assess without the benefit of personal interaction. It's simply that she's kind. And kind not just to people who have fancy titles like judge or clerk magistrate, but kind to the clerical staff that sits at the front counter of any clerk's office throughout the Commonwealth, and to the sessions clerks that attend courtroom sessions. It's this kindness, I believe, that's going to make her a great district court judge. I know that she, like me, has enormous respect for the important constitutional role that the Governor's Council plays in tendering advice and consent to the government. I personally will be eternally grateful to each and every one of you who on February 5th, 2020, unanimously voted to confirm me as Clerk Magistrate of the Worcester District Court. After, of course, a very thorough and comprehensive evaluation of my qualifications for the position. If Attorney Greenhalgh is fortunate enough to receive your support, I can say with metaphysical certitude that not only will she make a great district court judge, but she will never forget the critically important role that each of you played in helping her get there. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the counselors? Going around, Counselor Jaclyn?
You know the clerk of the juvenile court, Brendan Moran.
I do. He was in my office yesterday.
He called me on this candidate's behalf.
I know that he, like me, thinks very badly of her.
Yeah. He said that. So I should take it as a call.
Well, I think you should, yes.
And see, that's why you are in the position you're in. You know how to thank the Governor's Council.
I certainly do.
Very wise.
We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here without you.
Very wise.
Each and every one of you. And I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you for your testimony. That means a lot to me.
Thank you very much, Council.
Counselor Devaney?
Thank you.
First time?
Yes.
Wow, we missed you. How
I-
many years has it been?
It's been February 5th, 2020, so a little over 2 years.
Wow, that was my pleasure to vote for you. You know, sometimes, you know, we look back at 22 years, people that I have voted for, some disappoint me, you never have, and I'm very proud of what you do, and we need you in that court. There's a lot of criminal cases. I wish this nominee was going there, but that isn't the way it goes up here, so. Now tell me, how many years, you went back to the first time that you worked with her, or you saw her, tell me about how many years ago was that?
I would say approximately 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
And it's, as I indicated, you know, I have experience dealing with her as a former assistant district attorney with Attorney Greenhalgh on the other side, and now as someone who works in the clerk's office.
Right. And again, I should be talking about the nominee, but we need you there because we need people that have criminal experience, and you have it. And sometimes they appoint judges there that don't, so we need you.
I agree.
Now tell me, looking back at your experience with this nominee, is there anything or any case that comes to mind that you went, wow, she really knocked that out of the park?
I wouldn't say there's any particular case that comes to mind. As I indicated in my testimony, I remember her, you know, oftentimes you have attorneys that, you know, it's kind of a one-upsman game, and so when someone doesn't perform particularly well, as I certainly haven't on this particular occasion in that particular case, they look at that as an opportunity to kind of go and tell other folks, oh, you know, he or she doesn't know what they're doing, or is inexperienced, or, you know, could do better. Attorney Greenhalgh took the exact opposite role. She took the time as an experienced trial attorney to try to make someone better, to try to provide advice and insight and guidance, to try to make someone who was young and inexperienced, to try to share her wisdom and make me a better lawyer. And I remember that not only for the skills and experience that I gained as a result, but you always remember how people make you feel. And she made me feel worthy of her time and attention, and for that I'm eternally grateful.
Compassion and empathy is very important to me when I vote for a nominee. How would you rate this nominee?
5 stars, and I don't throw stars around either. She's, I mean, just unfailingly polite and respectful and kind, and like as I indicated, to the folks in the clerk's office, the people that oftentimes, you know, bear the brunt of the, you know, of folks who are, you know, for the most part, people are at a district court clerk's office counter not because they want to be there, but because they have to be there. And so they bear the brunt of a lot of, you know, anger. I've witnessed Attorney Greenhalgh and her kindness to those people, asking about their children, asking about their families. She's just unfailingly kind to everyone she does business with. And it's not, you know, when you get attorneys in a courtroom who demand things on occasion, the exact opposite. She has a conversation with the sessions clerk and goes out of her way to make them feel that they matter.
Now tell me, when you, when you look back at, at all the cases and everything, we've gone through a terrible time with this pandemic, and it's affected our courts. Tell me how she has continued and how she's managed to do her job.
So there are some attorneys who, you know, who are COVID conscious and haven't been around a whole lot. Attorney Greenhalgh has been active over the course of the last 2 years in the district court, and she's continued her practice. She's continued representing her clients to the best of her ability.
Yeah. So a lot of it has been done
Virtually.
yeah. So it's worked well?
I think certain things have worked well. I think, for instance, civil motor vehicle appeal hearings, for instance, folks who get a speeding ticket, you know, those folks no longer have to take a day off of work to come and contest that ticket. They don't have to, in Worcester, they don't have to drive to the courthouse. They don't have to pay for parking.
So it isn't as important to see that person face to face with that kind of a thing.
With that kind of thing,
Yeah,
but
with
certainly,
that kind of
yeah,
thing,
but
yeah.
certainly with, with
Yeah.
jury trials and
Yeah.
some of the.
But she has, had her series of cases that have continued, that haven't stopped with the
Person-
pandemic.
Correct.
Okay.
And you have folks who, just uncomfortable with being in the courthouse. Attorney Greenhalgh has continued to come into the courthouse. As I indicated, she continues to represent her clients to the best of her ability. Has stood tall over the course of the last 2 years.
No, why I ask is because, in talking with other attorneys, some of them haven't even been in a courtroom during the pandemic. And so, but for you, for her, for the attorney to be able to go to court and be in person, that's important.
I agree.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you for your time, and it's so good to see you.
It's great to see you.
Don't be a stranger.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you for coming
Thank you.
from Worcester and for your testimony. And one of the things you said that I think is so very, very important is congeniality, that she gets along well with other folks, but her peers hold her in high regard. Because when you work with a small group of people, if you are not well liked or well respected by your peers, that is a huge red flag. Because not everybody is wrong. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, because I do think it matters a lot, Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Any other questions from counselors? Counselor Hurley?
I have one. What is a metaphysical certitude?
That means, it means it will be true. I guarantee it.
Well, thank you. You made my day.
I appreciate that, Judge.
I hear nothing but great things about you, so keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Clerk Magistrate, we've heard your praises in this chamber before, so it's good to hear that you feel the nominee will keep up the culture that you're a part of in the Worcester Courthouse.
I certainly do.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.
I miss Brian DeAndrea.
Perfect timing, Counselor Kennedy.
Wow.
There's a 15-minute limit anyway, Counselor, so we wouldn't have got through everything. So before we move on, are there any folks here today to speak in opposition of the nominee? And there being none, I welcome you to offer an opening statement you've prepared.
Thank you. Members of the Governor Council, I am beyond thrilled to be sitting here today. Words cannot describe how I feel. I'd like to thank Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito for their nomination and having the confidence in me to serve this Commonwealth as a district court judge. I'd like to thank Bob Ross, Valerie McCarthy, and Lauren Green Patrigno for their guidance through this process. I would like to thank the JNC and the Joint Bar for their efforts in making sure that there are qualified candidates before this council. I'd like to thank my counselor, Paul DiPaolo, for his time and his guidance through this process and for serving the people of District 7. I'd like to thank all of you, Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Duff, Councilor Petito Devaney, Councilor Jubenville, Councilor Iannella, Councilor Ferreira, Councilor Hurley. Thank you all for the time that you spent looking at my application, my paperwork, for the time you spent speaking to me over the past few weeks, and for getting to know me. I also thank you for the work that you do for the citizens of this Commonwealth. You ensure that candidates before you are qualified to serve this Commonwealth, and I thank you for that. I would like to thank Clerk Magistrate DeAndrea for supporting me today. I would like to thank Peter Ettenberg. Peter has been my role model, my mentor. He's talked me off ledges. He's built my confidence. I came to Ettenberg in 2004, and I have never left. And I am still the newest hire at Ettenberg. And there's a reason for that. Peter and the rest of Ettenberg are my work family, and I'm truly grateful for them. With me today is my brother, Richard Greenhalgh. Rich is 3 years older than me, As kids, I played with Rich and his friends. We played a lot of basketball in our driveway on Dewey Street. A lot of big brothers wouldn't even let their younger sister near them. But Rich let me play. But I'll tell you this, he never took it easy on me. His friends never took it easy on me. He never let me win. There were games in which I never even got a shot off. There was blood in that driveway, and there were tears. But I never gave up. I kept coming back for more. And he never let up on me. And he doesn't want you to hear this part of the story, but what happens when you never give up? One day, I won. We have never played again. And I'll just leave it at that, and that is true. And I will just leave it at that. My children are here with me. My first, Olivia, is 22 years old. She's a 2021 graduate of Worcester Polytechnical Institute, and she now works full-time for the Worcester Public Schools. I'm amazed every day by Olivia. Not only is she by far smarter than me, she genuinely cares about the world she is now stepping into as a young adult. She wants this world to be a better place, and she started her own journey by working with children in her community. My second child, Lucas, is here with me today. He's 21 years old. He's a graduate of Worcester Technical High School, and he is also working full-time. I am amazed every day by Lucas. Lucas has a passion and a zeal for life, which started right from day one and it has never stopped. Lucas always thought every day was Saturday. Even when it was Monday morning, he was surprised he had to go on the school bus. But he did it with a smile on his face. He's a gentle soul, he is kind, and he is generous. He's finding his way in this world, and I have no doubt that he'll take that passion for life forward with him. Liv and Luke are my greatest achievement. They're the loves of my life. Everything I do for them. They're at an age now where it is their time to fly, to spread their wings and experience this world. The most important way to lead children is by example, and I can only hope that I've done that for them. Counselors, as you can see from my application, my resume, I've spent my career in the courtroom. Mostly district court, also superior court. I've been before the appeals court, the SJC, First Circuit, and administrative courts. I have argued both criminal and civil motions. I have tried both criminal and civil cases. But I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you about myself beyond my experience and beyond my life as an attorney. I am the granddaughter of Oscar and Navat Kaloulian. My grandparents were Armenian genocide survivors. My grandfather escaped the genocide early on before witnessing much destruction. My grandmother was not so lucky. She lived through it. She was the sole survivor of her family. My grandfather, or Dada, as Rich and I called him, settled in Worcester and began work as a tailor. He learned some English, but it was limited. When he wanted to marry, my grandfather and his cousin, whom I knew as Uncle Mike, were here in America, and they came up with a plan. Uncle Mike would travel back to Armenia and secure some wives. My grandfather, who at that time had not one hair on his head, gave Uncle Mike a picture of himself to take with him. Uncle Mike went back to Armenia. He went to an orphanage and picked out, as he says, the 2 finest Armenian girls he could find. And he showed my future grandmother the picture of my grandfather, in which, I am told, my grandfather miraculously had a full head of hair. How could my grandmother resist? Her choices were limited at that time, and now she had the opportunity to get out, to go to America, and marry an Armenian with a full head of hair to boot. My grandparents married, settled in Worcester, in a 3-decker, in a diverse area of the city, as many immigrants had done. My grandmother spoke no English. She stayed home. My grandfather continued his work as a tailor, They had 4 children, and my mother Rose was their second child. She was a first-generation American. I grew up in that same 3-decker, in that same diverse area of the city. I lived on the 2nd floor, and my grandparents lived on the 1st. I went to Abbott Street School, the same neighborhood elementary school my mother did. I walked to school just as my mother did. Early on, I did not go far from that diverse neighborhood. There were no backyard pools there, no trampolines, no swing sets. I played in driveways. I played in the streets. I played with my brother and the neighborhood kids from the other 3-deckers, whose grandparents also lived on the 1st floor. We were kids from all different walks of life. There were voices of broken English that called us home at night for dinner. And there were always unique smells in the air from the different 3-deckers from different ethnic groups. We were all so different. My old neighborhood is no longer described as diverse, but instead it's referred to in police reports as a high-crime, high-drug area of the city. I find myself often driving through my old neighborhood, stopping in front of my 3-decker. I brought my children there. Some of my clients come from that neighborhood now. I even recently had a criminal client who lived in the same 3-decker that I grew up in. I no longer live in that neighborhood. I've been able to achieve the dream of owning a single-family home and raising my children there. I applied hard work and determination, the same hard work and determination I had playing against my brother in that driveway. I focused on school, I focused on going to college and then law school. But I have never forgotten where I come from. I have a picture hanging in my house of my grandmother in that orphanage. She's surrounded by 50 other orphan girls who had lost their families. There's not one smile in that photograph. I look at that picture every morning. I think about my grandparents' survival. I think about the risk my grandmother took in coming to this country she did not know, to a man she did not know, and starting a new life. I have a picture of my mother as a young child hanging in my house, and I look at that picture every morning. My mother did not leave that 3-decker. She did not have the opportunities I had. She did not have the opportunity to go to college, to go to law school. Because of all of this that I have just described to you, I have the ability to relate to people from all walks of life. This ability is invaluable as a district court judge. The district court is the people's court. Each person in that courtroom has a unique story, has unique experiences, has a reason why they are there. It's their court. It is the people's court. If I am so fortunate to be appointed as a district court judge in this Commonwealth, I assure you that in my courtroom, it will remain the people's court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now open the proceeding to questions from counselors. Just a reminder that last week the council voted to limit questions to 15 minutes to allow each counselor.
We're going to be timed?
We will be timed. I'll be happy to remind the counselors when we get there, but there will be opportunity for further questioning after we've gone around the council. And in keeping with that protocol, I'll be calling on counselors in order of district, and that will begin with Councilor Mary Hurley.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, Councilor.
All right. We had a really good conversation on the phone for some length. I reviewed your application. I think Attorney Edberg said it best. You have it all. Civil, criminal, and you spent the majority of your career in a courtroom, which gives you, I think, a great perspective and certainly a great background. I really don't have any questions. I think that your work speaks for itself, and your success in court and the successes that you been credited with by Attorney Edinburgh. Certainly tell me in no uncertain terms that you are the kind of person that we need in the district court bench. So the only thing, I think we talked about this too, you should get 2 rows when you're successfully voted on for the judgeship. And I appreciate your time with me, and I think you're going to do a great job. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Judenville, do you have any questions
Thank
for the
you.
nominee?
I reiterate what Councilor Hurley said, you have a great civil and criminal background. I also am impressed by your wide range of occupations over your life. And what that tells me is you gained a lot of experience in dealing with people and people's problems. And usually with that kind of a range, you have a great deal of empathy about what it's like to go through some of those employment jobs, which I think would help you make a better judge when you see people come before you that are disadvantaged and don't have all of the things that we sort of have, you know. Your 2 witnesses, I mean, Peter is probably one of the best lawyers in the Commonwealth, in my opinion. He has a stellar reputation. He's just a decent human being. And Brian is a wonderful clerk, a wonderful man. I don't want to get big head. Maybe he's not listening. I also got a call from Brendan Moore and the court when he went out for it. Really impressed me with what he said about it. So I don't have any questions. I'm going to be voting for him next week.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor DeVaney.
Oh, surprise. Well, nice to see you again. It was really a pleasure meeting you, really. I have to tell you, you brought tears to my eyes talking about your unnamed grandmother because, believe it or not, I'm old enough, I've had friends that were survivors of the genocide. My last friend was 10 years ago, in her 90s, that she died. So those stories are always in my head. You know, when she was 12 years old, Turkish soldiers came in and they all raped her. And she had to watch while they killed all her family. And she came to this country with 2 little boys, 4 years old and 2 years old. And the 2-year-old was born totally blind. And she came to this country. So you just revived me. And yeah, it's a lot of people don't know that history. And there are people who still deny it. They deny the Holocaust too, so. But, you know, having said that, I just hope your grandmother left her recipes, that's all.
She did.
My Italian mother didn't, and I regret that. And I'm first generation, so I know what they went through, so I know what your family went through, a lot of prejudice in those days. So, having said that, as a mother of 4 children, I understand your position in being a lawyer. And I really respect you because your commitment to these children, and you stopped being a lawyer for a while to do that job full-time as a mother. And as a mother of 4 children that started as a freshman in college, I know what that is. So I really, there's a lot of things that I can, you know, associate myself with you. But I have to say, you know, your resume, I've been here 22 years, and I don't recall anyone that's been in every court. And you have been. I mean, even to representing someone before the parole board. So I don't think there's any place in Massachusetts that you haven't, in appeals court and, you know, Supreme Judicial Court, all of them. And that brings a lot to the bench. You know, to bring someone who worked in a city hall that's a judge in Worcester, that's not what I want. You have the experience, the qualifications, and the age. And, you know, it's very important to have age just experience. And the other thing is I look for, and it comes with age, pro bono. You've done a lot of pro bono, and that really touches my heart, to reach out with people, especially the people who don't have lawyers, and how you have done that. So you have, your witnesses were great. They know you, and they've seen you through the years. That means a lot to me, So anyway, tell me, you had real criminal cases too, murder cases and everything. But, recently we went through the tragedy of the trooper who was killed.
Yes.
Been 22 troopers that have been killed like that, helping someone that is disabled. Tell us about the case that you had with David Jaclyn.
Yes, so Attorney Ettenberg and I represented David Jaclyn, who had gotten in a car accident on the Mass Pike and had unfortunately killed Trooper Clardy in that accident. It was, we had about a 10-day trial, I believe, in Superior Court. I'm heartbroken that a trooper had passed away, and he had obviously a wife and 5 children. But I think, we represented him with compassion, represented Mr. Jaclyn with compassion and with grace. It was not always easy to sit in that courtroom with a widow and 5 children behind you and a courtroom full of state troopers. But there will be times in the district court, if I need to be appointed, that it will not be easy to take the bench and make the decisions that you have to make. But I am proud of it because we went through that, and as I said, we had represented him to the best that we could, zealously, as we're supposed to, but we also did so with compassion and empathy for the widow and those children and the rest of the state troopers.
So the other thing is, which I can relate to, because I know what it was when my mother came to this country as a child, my father came to this country, they would let an Italian work in Watertown. So I know all of that. Now tell me your experience, your pro bono work, if you can tell us, representing people who who have fled their countries, and they're looking for asylum, and what you have done. So tell us those cases.
Sure. I began working with, which was then Lutheran Community Services, and is now essentially a Care Alliance. At the time, they did not have in-house counsel. They do now. So they were looking for lawyers in the community to represent people that have fled their country and are here in the United States on a visa and are seeking political asylum. So I've represented a number of, it was mostly women who had been, as my grandmother was, tortured and beaten in their country for various reasons, whether it had been political reasons. Some of them were victims of domestic violence. I represented those people in hearings before the immigration court because they were afraid to return to their countries and looking for asylum here in the United States.
The thing that impressed me, that you grew up in a great Decca, so people, I'm sorry that this isn't, the public doesn't hear it because they should really hear you, that, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth and rich parents and all of that, and you worked to get where you are now, and I congratulate you on that. We've lost that, haven't we, through the years, and does that make you more sensitive to people coming before you? I mean, you lived in the 3 Decca with your aunts, your cousins, your grandmother, and everyone, and, I have grandkids in New York, I have to hear, but I know that you don't have that day-to-day, a conversation and really getting to know each other. So when you have people before you, how does that help? You're bringing up in that atmosphere that some people don't have family, they don't have anyone to be there with them to support them.
A lot of my clients don't have that support. Of my criminal work, I would say 50% of my criminal work has been bar advocate work, so these are court-appointed clients. And I was always amazed when a young adult or anyone was there without a family member in the court with them, or would come to my office to meet me without any family. And I learned quickly that perhaps some of them just don't have anyone, and others, their family can't be there because they're working and trying to raise a family and support them. I had a number of young adults who had never had anyone in their life tell them that they had potential, or that they could do better, for themselves. So I came to realize quickly that those people needed support beyond just being a lawyer, beyond just representing them, advocating for them zealously, but needed support in the community. So I had worked with them. I told a number of young adults, one in particular, that he had potential. I remember him saying to me it was the first time an adult woman had ever said that to him, which was heartbreaking and for me at that time. But he's doing very well now, considering what he had gone through. So I think, I believe I bring to the bench that perspective, knowing that people in front of me have not had that support.
I know you like to write, I can tell by your JNC, and I want to tell you, looking at hundreds and hundreds of JNC questionnaires in 22 years, I really appreciate it because, sometimes we get a sentence, and a sentence of the case, and I don't know, well, how did it turn out? There wasn't anything, just a sentence, that you attacked a police officer or something, and I'm saying, oh. But you really, I can understand every case that you've had, and I like your writing sample. I mean, really, it's Superior Court material, really, which was what I was reading. So tell me about that, your writing sample. I'm not going to talk about it. I want you to talk about it, what you put in your JNC.
Sure. So with my JNC application, I submitted an example of a civil case. I thought it was important for counselors and the JNC to know that not only do I do criminal work, but I can do civil work also. And it was a case in which, and it may not be popular, it was a case in which the Patriots were the defendant, and the plaintiff was hurt at a Patriots preseason practice. And it was a case that the defendant had moved for summary judgment, and I put in there every reason why summary judgment should not have been granted in a negligence lawsuit.
I would be remiss if I did mention, because I said you've been in every court, but I do want for the record to say that you have handled cases in a variety of courts and agencies, including district court, superior court, juvenile court, probate and family court, housing court, appeals court, Supreme Judicial Court, Federal District Court, First Circuit Court of Appeals, the Registry of Motor Vehicles, the Department of Unemployment, Sex Offender Registry Board, the Parole Board, and the Department of Children and Families. I'm telling you honestly, 22 years, I've never seen that before. Really and truly. I mean, this is remarkable. And you know what's remarkable? First time you've applied.
Yes.
And you're 50 years old.
Yes.
And I love that. I love the age. I love the experience. Now, okay, now tell me, all the cases you had, hundreds and hundreds of cases everywhere in agencies and before the courts, what was the most rewarding in your career?
I had a recent case that's not on the application because it happened during the pandemic in the past couple of years, where I represented a gentleman. The co-defendant was his wife, and the gentleman was charged with manslaughter and assault and battery on a child with serious injury. Again, facts of the case not easy. We had a son and a daughter. The daughter was killed by the mother. The son suffered serious injuries. This was at the hands of the mother. However, my client, being the father and being in the household, was also charged because he was present and it happened over the course of time that he was present. And the theory was he should have stepped in and done something. He recently pled out to that matter in Superior Court. And over the past couple of weeks, as part of the plea, we had worked out an agreement that he could communicate with the son through letters. The son had since been adopted by the uncle. The son wanted to speak to his father, wanted to have a relationship with him, given the fact that the son at that point was 13. We wanted to make sure that it was done in the appropriate manner. So we worked out an agreement that they could communicate with each other through letters, as long as the uncle got to read the letters that were coming to the son. And I recently heard from the family through a text message thanking me for what I had done, that my client and his son were getting back together, were forming a relationship. They've been writing to each other, and they just wanted to thank me for getting that process going and for the healing the family is now going through.
So, when we met, your compassion and empathy came through, really. And I'd like to know, have you followed up with any of the people that you have represented to see if they've gone on with their life, if they've been successful, or whatever's happened to them?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, of my criminal work, about 50% of that has been bar advocate work. And again, these are people that really have no one. Sometimes I'm the only one in their lives. So I do hear from a group of them regularly. I have a gentleman in jail right now. He's been sentenced. My job is over. However, he does like to Zoom with me occasionally, or make a phone call to my office, and I take those phone calls. I am the only person in his life sometimes that he has that has been through this with him. So I do follow up with my clients. I do not shy away when they call the office. I take the phone calls. I also live in the community that I work in. So it's not foreign for me to see some of them out and about in Worcester. So I absolutely make a point when they recognize me to go up to them and see how they're doing.
And I like the idea that you work both sides. That's really important too. Now, tell me, I ask every nominee this. Your journey in getting here. You only applied once. So people don't know. We don't make the decisions here. We only have one person that comes before us. We don't know how many have been chosen, how many have been rejected. We have one person to vote yes or no. And every governor has the authority to appoint 21 attorneys throughout Massachusetts. What an awesome responsibility. They reject some people, they interview some people, and then ultimately they choose one person to recommend to the governor that comes before us, and we simply vote yes or no. So to me, and I say it all the time, it's very important that 21 people see that nominee, because they're making a lifetime decision. This person is going to have a lifetime position as a clerk magistrate and up to 70 as a judge. So how many of those 21 were there?
It was on Zoom because it happened during the pandemic, and there were 11 members present.
Counselor.
Okay, so that's
Counselor,
me.
you
I'm
get
not
time in
time.
this session.
I'm not going to be censured.
Vote.
So 10 people
Counselor,
did not.
go to the next
10
counselor.
people did not.
Call.
Counselor, I'm going to call on Counselor Ainella, or I'll recess the hearing. It's Counselor Ainella's floor.
As an elected person, I'm not able to speak. I'm not able to question. Thank you very much for that vote. It was 7-1. I want people to know.
Thank you, Counselor Ainella.
Thank you.
Most of your practice now, by looking at your resume, is in the criminal field, is that correct?
Right now, I would say 70% is criminal, 30% is civil, and it has walked through there.
Close enough.
Yes.
And I think half of the criminal, I think I read or heard you, is in the bar advocate program.
Excuse me, Chris, can you just speak up a little louder?
Oh, you scared me.
The voice of God is coming in.
Well, and if you can't hear me, let me know. Okay, and half of your work with respect to the criminal is in the bar advocate program, is that correct?
It is.
And that's the system where you get appointed by the folks from somewhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, appointed, and you get paid by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yes.
And I'm curious, what is how do you get paid? Is there an hourly fee for in court, out of court, and if so, what is that rate?
Sure, there's an hourly fee, and the fee is the same whether in court or out of court. And there's an hourly fee, because I do both district and superior court, and the hourly fee in district court is $57 an hour, if I'm correct, and in superior court, it's now, I believe it's $70 an hour in superior court.
A few years ago, I used to do bar advocate program. It was a little different. The judge would appoint lawyers. And in those days, it was $15 out of court and $30 in court. So I'm glad to see it's increasing. So let me ask you, someone's found guilty. Are you someone who favors rehabilitation over incarceration? Give me your thoughts between rehabilitating someone and incarcerating someone. I want to get your philosophy.
I think incarceration is the last resort. I believe in rehabilitation. I believe that there's a person in front of you, a whole person in front of you, that has reasons why they are there and why that happens. So I do believe in rehabilitation over incarceration.
Okay, that's good to hear. Now, it says you're appointed to the district court. Does that mean the Worcester District Court? Or I know a lot of times folks are appointed, to the West Roxbury District Court or the Hingham District Court. You may never sit in that court. But have you been appointed to the district court or the Worcester District Court?
I have been nominated to the Clinton District Court.
The Clinton. And I have to assume that I could be totally wrong, that there's not much business in Clinton.
You'd be surprised.
Be very careful here.
You'd be surprised.
Well, it's not like the Worcester District Court.
It is not like the Worcester District.
That's what I meant. That's what
There is a surprising amount of cases in Clinton.
And what type of cases? More criminal or more personal injury? Or more civil, I should say.
From what I see in my time in Clinton, it would be more criminal in Clinton.
And how many judges are presently sitting in Clinton?
Right now, I know that Judge Sargent sits in Clinton.
So one.
Yes.
And you gotta have a lot more in Worcester.
Oh, yes.
That's what
There's
I
at least 6 in Worcester.
Okay, yeah. What type of judge are you gonna be when it comes to the folks whether it's the criminal case, we'll say first of all, prosecutor, young prosecutor, maybe the defense attorney's young, doesn't necessarily have to be young, but in my hypo, it's young, and let's say it's an operating under. Can you believe it? They never mentioned the fact or proved that it was a public way. What, if anything, do you do as the judge? You know it's the prosecutor, assistant DAs. You could tell he or she hasn't been around a long time. He or she's done a decent job. Forgot to mention and prove the element of a public way.
As a judge, I have to direct that up.
So, no, before you even get into that, you wouldn't say, counselor, you wouldn't give him any hints that he didn't do it, is what I'm saying.
I would not.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I know if the defense attorney asked him, I don't do criminal, but I think it used to be, makes a motion for required finding if not guilty. You wouldn't say, you wouldn't allow, say, a motion to reopen the case if the ADA said, I'd like a motion to reopen the case after he's already finished.
I would not.
No, that's good, because you got to prove the case. Lastly, tell me your sense, and I ask this all the time, continuances. So many lawyers, we have lawyers who do criminal work in this council, and they don't have big staffs. So they could be in multiple courts, or should be in multiple courts at the same time. What's your philosophy on granting continuances?
I would grant the continuance. I've been in private practice for 20 years. I know what it feels like to have to be in 3 different courthouses, not just courtrooms, but courthouses on the same day. And as an attorney, you make a decision in the morning, where am I going first?
Okay.
So I understand what that feels like, and I would grant a continuance.
Okay, so let's assume the case is on for the 3rd or 4th time. It's a criminal case, and there's an order from the prior judge, no further continuances. And that judge is not sitting there today, you're sitting there. And it appears to be a legitimate reason why one of the defense attorneys can't be there. You know, I have a Social Security case in Boston, which is a federal one. And they notified you a couple of days in advance. Even though it's no further continuances in order from the prior judge, what would you do under that circumstance?
I would grant continuance.
Okay, well, that's good. I don't have any more questions. I like your temperament. You definitely have the experience. I love the balance between civil and criminal. Your counselor, DePaulo, big supporter. As soon as your name came before us, he called me. It's almost like he called me like hours, and so he's a big supporter of yours. I wish you the best. I think you're going to be a great addition to the district court, and when your name comes before the council, you can count on my vote.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Duff.
Thank you very much. You have a great resume, we know that. You also have two things, Councilor Jaclyn hinted it out, which I personally think is important. The diversity of work, but you also waited tables. That says a lot. People who have worked in restaurants and waited tables, because you learn a lot that way. And you're an athlete, so you're competitive and you have to be nimble, which I think is important as well. Before I ask you questions, I want to make a statement to clear something up, because something really has bothered me for a very long time, and it's a piece of gross misinformation that gets perpetuated in these meetings. The Judicial Nominating Commission is appointed by whoever the governor is. This time it's Charlie Baker. I never voted for Charlie Baker. I've locked horns with him on many occasions, so he and I have worked very hard on our relationship and have a good working relationship, but I'm not somebody that's rah-rah for Charlie Baker. But he's the governor, and he gets to appoint this commission. These are 21 people from across the state that are volunteers. Volunteers. And they meet every single Tuesday night for free for a term of over a year to expedite the need of clerks and judges in this Commonwealth, which we are desperate for. This governor, under his power as governor, has decided to use a management tool that was not ever employed before. And that is, half of the group meets with one candidate, and the other half meets with another candidate. And then they get together, and they share information, and discuss it before they vote. So this misrepresentation that is presented here almost weekly by another counselor, that half the people don't know anything about you, is a lie. And there's no other way of saying it, because at this point it is dangerous to the public. Lawyers don't understand. These people volunteer their time. Now, if you live in Pittsfield, there is nothing wrong with you employing technology, because we are in the year 2022, where you can employ technology and participate in a meeting that is 3 or 4 hours away. You don't have to be there in person anymore, nor should you. It's a waste of time and resources. I'm not yelling at you, but I'm emphatic about this, because the misrepresentation that the Judicial Nominating Commission does not discuss every candidate is a lie. It's wrong, it's detrimental to the public, and I cannot abide listening to it anymore. Every single member of that commission saw your resume, saw your paperwork, and discussed you. Were they all in the room? Were they all on the call? Maybe not. Maybe not. And the reason why is because this governor, who happens to be a business manager, has employed some of the techniques he knows as a professional of business management and uses them. Good for him. Good for him. Like I said, I didn't vote for him.
Is this a
I'm not
hearing?
Excuse me.
Information. Is this a hearing?
Counselor, we're going to let Counselor Duff continue her question. She's under her time.
So I just want the public, and since I know this is recorded, I want that to be on record, because I'm tired of having people come up to me and say, oh, the Judicial Nominating Commission doesn't meet with everyone. They don't discuss it. They're not doing their jobs. Untrue. They are doing their jobs. Some people in this room don't understand how that works. Some people in this room don't understand technology. That's okay. Some of us are younger. Some of us are more nimble. Some of us have different strengths. You know, that's all right. Everyone has the right to do what they want to do. But I really need to go on the record with that because I find it abhorrent and insulting to a group of people that volunteer to do work for the Commonwealth. All right, so let's get back to you and your resume. We know you have a great resume. I was, for one, very impressed that you worked for Mintz Levin and then went to go into the public sector. What on earth was she thinking? You kids, you probably would have all gone to fancier schools. But good for you. Good for you for doing that. Can you share with us what made you do something like that? Why the public sector? Who are you? Why'd you do that?
It was what I wanted to do. As you said, I worked at Mintz Levin when I was in law school, because we had co-op.
Yeah.
And because I wanted to give that a try. I'd never been in that situation before. And honestly, it was my last semester in law school and I was completely broke. So I went to Mintz Levin and I could have stayed there, but it was not what I wanted to do.
Right.
I wanted to work in the community that I was living in and represent those people.
And that's so it spoke to your soul to do public service work. And Northeastern has a fabulous program, and the lawyers that come out of there are such, across the board people. United States Senator Will Collin, Northeastern. So if you go to the district court, and I hope you do ascend to it, what do you think one of the biggest modern challenges, because we have been through a pandemic and we're still partially in the pandemic, and they say there's another big hit coming to us soon, another variant. What do you see? You've been in the courts. What do you see as a judge? What you think will be one of the biggest or a few of the biggest challenges that you will face?
I think right now, as you said, going through the pandemic and actually still in the pandemic, there are two major challenges. One are mental health issues. I have a lot of clients, and I see it in court every day, and the pandemic has affected this, people with mental health issues. So that needs to be taken into account as a judge when fastening a sentence, or just understanding why this is happening, why this person is in front of you. The second issue I see is just access and being able to get to court. In Worcester, it's one thing. We do have some public transportation, not the greatest, but people tend, they're able to get to court. In the outlying Clinton, Dudley, it's tough for some of my clients to get to court, especially court-appointed clients. So I think with the new technology with Zoom, there are times when clients should not have to come to court. Pre-trial conferences, compliance and election dates, things like that. If there's an attorney there that has constant contact with their client and says to the judge, I have contact with my client, I don't think that client needs to be there. And if the judge wants that client there, they can certainly use Zoom, or even a call into my clients that just can't figure out how to use Zoom. They have sometimes we can call them.
Right. How am I doing on time? 2 minutes. You spoke to my heart right then, because I'm a big fan of community courts, and as you probably spoke about access to justice, and if you can't get to court, you have no access to justice, right? I think we need to be even more creative in how we get people, but your answer of employing the technology that we have that we know works, streamlines things, keeps costs down, lets people go to work. They're not sitting in a court all day waiting. They can get on their phone, whatever, to get in. Really important stuff, and I'm glad that you're thinking that way. Our courts are the best in the country, the Massachusetts courts, bar none. The way in fact, NPR, there was a story about us this morning on NPR. The way that we do it in this state, the best in the country. Best in the country. People can say what they want about this council. It's the best way to do things. We're not perfect, but we're pretty good. takes a lot of the pay-to-play out of it. So the creativity that I ask people for, I think that you have and you're willing to employ. I think my time is up. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kennedy, any questions for the nominee?
If I may, I've gotten a lot of calls about you. Councilor DiPaolo talking about you, he is a big fan. Brian DeAndrea called me right away when you were nominated. He asked me for parking for your hearing first, and I said, oh, by the way, she's a good candidate.
Wherever sent the limo.
And of course, Peter Gilbert was here. Edinburgh is a great lawyer who I've known for a few decades anyway. Does a great job. He's one of the most respected lawyers in the Commonwealth, as Councilor Greenhalgh pointed out. You know, as I look through your resume, I'm looking at your pre-law time. You really had to work your way through school. Looks like you spent a lot of time working in various restaurants and things like that all through school. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
That's pretty much how you paid for your way along?
My mother absolutely did help with law school. I had taken a couple of years off, so I was working and had saved some money, but I've always waited on tables.
It's pretty consistent, your work. It's like you went from one job to the next job to the next job. You know, my friend Lee Johnson, who was a speaker at an event, he was a judge in Malden District Court, he grew up in Everett, and he went from one job to another job to another job. And I had to introduce him one time at an event where I was going through all his jobs. And when I got to his judgeship, I said, so we couldn't keep a job, so we had to make him a judge. But it's curious how you can see that you're a very, very hard worker, and I can see that you're going to bring that to the bench. I noticed that you put down that you were a freelance attorney taking cases on a case-by-case basis. Apparently, I didn't realize it, but Councilor Jaclyn and I are freelance attorneys. I thought it was just an attorney, but we're apparently freelance attorneys. But you have a great resume. We talked on the phone. I can't tell you how many people call. I don't even remember how many people called me. This morning, Meg Spring called me about you. Judge Spring, who I have known for a very long time, her and her husband, and had fantastic things to say about you. The list just goes on, and it wasn't just that they were saying something nice about you. They were saying, is Jaclyn going to be okay at the hearing? Is she going to be okay? They're very, very concerned that you would get through this process. Your practice is not unlike mine in a lot of ways. I have a mix of civil and criminal. I've been doing it a little longer than you. You've been doing it for about 15, maybe 20 years?
About 20 years.
20 years. I've been doing it for 38, almost as long as Councilor Jaclyn, but not quite. But it's a similar type practice. It's probably 70% criminal and 30% civil. So given that you have that great experience, I'm going to have to vote for you. I don't have a choice. But no, your resume is outstanding. I'll be voting for you next week. Do your kids know that from now on, when they see you at home, they have to call you Your Honor?
I don't think that's going to
Well, at home they can call you Judge.
I'm okay with the kids now, but I would like my brother to call.
You'd like your brother to do that? We'll make that a condition of the vote.
I like the same brother.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set. I don't need the whole 15 minutes because I did my due diligence before we got here and spoke to her on the phone and a lot of other people, so I'm good.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ferreira,
Thank you. I have lots of questions. So can he yield his remaining 10 minutes to me?
you're down to 14.
You have it. It's all yours,
Okay,
Joe.
all right, thank you. First of all, I want to say I enjoyed our conversation. It was both a long time. And I do want to start with, I do agree with Councilor Duff. I know people that work for the JNC. They work their tail off for free. I know someone who's been on the JNC for 20 years. They drive to Boston, they interview every candidate they can. I know a guy that spends 12 to 15 hours a week doing due diligence, writing decisions, opinions about whether or not somebody should move forward or not. They interview lots of people, sometimes they break the room in half. But they do work very, very hard for nothing. They lose money by being on the JNC because it takes it easy to practice. So I do agree with Councilor Duff on that, and I do respect the JNC. But you and I spoke a lot, getting back to you. The Honorable DeAndre reached out to me a couple of times about you, and he gave you the thumbs up. Councilor Jen Casey, well, Magistrate Jen Casey reached out
Yes.
and said how wonderful you are as well. I think you're gonna be a great judge. You did make one little error in your application, I saw that you had a political contribution to somebody, I don't know. But other than that. Sorry, but.
I noticed that, I didn't mention it.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I don't know.
This guy,
What page is that on?
Sky Rafferty?
This guy right there, but, she's speechless. But no, seriously, you have an amazing resume. I do agree that, there's not many like you that can do with the vast array of experience that you have. And, you've done great, you're gonna be a great judge. I don't know this.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And that comes to me. So the advantage of going last is that a lot of topics are covered by my colleagues. Counselor DeBaney had a lot of good questions about working with disadvantaged populations, and I was impressed with your responses. Counselor Iannella and Counselor Duff asking about access to justice, especially in Clinton, and that's all important. Let me ask you, have you ever visited a jail or a house of corrections?
Oh, absolutely.
And what is the benefit to society of locking up a nonviolent criminal, in your estimation?
I don't see a benefit.
Is there a net gain
No.
to society? Okay. I've heard from all sorts of folks, as have my colleagues, about your qualifications and your demeanor. I think Clerk Magistrate DeAndrea talking about the way you treat colleagues, the way you treat folks coming into the courthouse, the way you treat clients is real important in the district court. So we had discussions. I have no further questions, but I do want to make sure that any of my colleagues who have further questions to pursue have that opportunity. So going around, any counselors?
No. No.
Okay. Well, that being said then, I look forward to submitting your name to the Assembly next week.
Thank you.
This hearing is closed.
good job, good job.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
How am I doing for Central Mass? Is it okay?
That's right.